Welcome back to the Resilient Philosopher. This is the Leon Dantes, and today is the last episode of Season 2. I want to make you aware that we'll be back on May 20th with our Season 3. We're taking some time off, and we wanted to do this last episode, a very special episode. It is about something that I have been thinking about for many, many years now. See, I grew up in a household of Christians, and I eventually became identified as a spiritualist. Not because I didn't believe in Jesus, but I just didn't see Christianity as Jesus. And that is why today's subject is, what would happen if Jesus Christ came back to earth today? Would we crucify him yet again? And the reason why I ask this is because when you look in the Bible and you study Jesus Christ or Jesus de Nazareth, you actually see that he was a man that loved, that had empathy, that cared for the people. He is what we call a servant leader, a leader that is willing to serve others and not himself. See, when he stood against the religious presence in Israel, he didn't do it to gain prestigious places or titles. He wasn't seeking none of that. They actually almost killed him because he didn't want to become their king. Yet when he was crucified, they wrote that on right over his head. So when you analyze the type of life that Jesus lived when he was here on earth, and you compare that with our religious leaders and our political leaders that call themselves to be Christians, makes me really wonder. And I cannot be the only person in the world that can see the parable. It is interesting to realize that even though we tend to call ourselves Christians, Jesus himself was not a Christian. Jesus was a practicing Jewish man, and he didn't start Christianity. He didn't preach Christianity. He preached love, understanding. He preached that he was the way to his Father. But he did not preach war. He did not preach hatred. On the contrary, he preached unity, bringing people together to praise God, his Father. He also mentioned something interesting. He said in a parable that the weeds and the wheat will grow together. And when it came time for the harvest, you really couldn't tell the difference because the weeds had grown as big and strong as the weeds. And not to sound bad, but kind of makes you wonder, when we compare Christianity to the work of Jesus Christ, it's kind of like the weeds and the weed. But let's take it a little further. When we analyze the Antichrist will be the opposite of Jesus Christ. A hint, the word anti. Now, what would be the opposite of Jesus Christ? What would be the opposite of the Messiah? That is a question that I confronted with myself. And for many years, I would point out, oh, maybe that's the Antichrist. Oh, maybe this is the Antichrist. But who really is the Antichrist? The Antichrist doesn't have to be a person. Doesn't have to be one organization. The Antichrist took the message from Jesus, the Messiah, and amplified it for selfish gains. Now, I'm not going to mention much more than one simple thing. Put the teachings of Jesus in a mirror against all the other religions that call themselves his followers. When you look at the mirror, I'll let you make the decision of who is really the Antichrist. Now, personally, for me, I see Jesus Christ as a great spiritual philosopher. I see him as a great example of what servant leadership should be. I think that we all have a lot to learn from him, and that the earth will be a paradise if we actually follow his footsteps. Now, I'm still a spiritualist, but I do believe in Jesus. I do see him as the Son of God, but that's the other problem I always had. How can you have an intimate relationship with a God that you don't know his name? And his name was lost in history due to fear to mention his name, for he might curse you. So a lot of translations say it is Yahweh, Jehovah. The truth is, I've never felt comfortable with the fact that there's no true definition of his name. So that's why I call myself a spiritualist. I don't stop and have a hard time thinking of, is this right? Is this wrong? Is it this? Is it that? No. The message that Jesus taught was to treat others with love and kindness and empathy. That is a simple message. We don't have to interpret it too far by making rules and making houses of worship that look like fortresses, or for pastors to be walking around like they were kings, or for lawmakers and presidents to be making laws like if they were handed down by Jesus Christ himself. No, free will is one of the things that is taught in the Bible. From the Old Testament to the New Testament, free will is essential. So when you integrate your religious belief into laws, into politics, you are taking away free will. And free will is important because through free will, we're tested. We're tested to see if our belief is truly strong enough to overcome anything. Many times I have heard Christians say that they're eager to go to heaven to be with our Heavenly Father. By logic, they talk about this earth or the circumstances on earth right now compared to Sodom and Gomorrah. This is the thing though. If the earth has to be as bad as those two cities in the Bible, why do you concern yourself with making laws to prevent that from happening? Are you attached with the things on earth, or are you looking forward to heaven? You can't have both. On the contrary, if you look at the New Testament, it says that be happy that the day of the Lord is coming. And in order for the day of the Lord to come, well, there has to be great tribulation. There has to be an attack on the true followers of Jesus. And the question is, when we have political powers that use Christianity to make laws, when we have religious leaders that act like they themselves are Jesus here on earth, it really makes you think. If you were the Antichrist and you knew that the best thing you could believe is, don't worry about earth, let what happen because you're going to heaven, then you need to distract them by making earth their heaven. See, I believe that there is no greater hell than the one that we live on earth. There is no greater heaven than the one that we live in peace with God. So when you are stuck between peace with God and staying on earth, you have created a whole different level of hell, which I think in the great comedy, that was one of the levels of hell. Now, I leave you with a simple yet hard question. If Jesus was right now, that person hungry, that person suffering, that person that you daily try to avoid, what would he think of you? What would he think of all these religious leaders that snub us, that think that they're above everyone else? Was Jesus really like that? I want you to analyze the Gospels. Let them serve as a mirror of what leadership should be like. And use that in order to really understand this episode. And if you are not a Christian and you have been listening to this episode, I strongly recommend you read the Gospels anyways, so you can learn a lot about leadership and the proper way of leading others. Because when you do things for others, when you serve, not for the good of yourself, but for the good of the common man, the common people, the person next to you, you have gained more than just being a leader. You have become a friend. You have become a human being. So yes, as a person who does not classify himself as a Christian, but as a spiritualist, I do use a lot of the teachings of Jesus Christ as the proper way to lead and even at times to follow. Now, I also wanted to make another announcement. I know this is the end of season 2, and when I am taking this time off, we will be moving every Spanish episode from this channel to El Filósofo Resiliente, so that our Spanish listeners have their own catalog of episodes and our English listeners have their own catalog of episodes. As you go through our seasons, 2 seasons, and all the episodes, you will notice the changes. I am not going to fix that. I am purposely leaving that because it is for anyone to see the trajectory and where we have moved forward and how the philosophy came to be. So it's important for me to leave that untouched. Now, season 3 will come back on May 20th. And from there on, we will be releasing every episode on Tuesdays. And I am going to move the time from the Universal Standard Time to the Eastern Time for United States of America. Season 3 will be full of philosophy into a deeper level because I am planning on releasing my new book, The Resilient Philosopher, The Prism of Reality, on May 20th. I currently have leadership lessons from the edge of mental health already available on Kindle and Amazon in hardcover and paperback. And I would like to also let everyone know that the best way to support our work, it is by purchasing a book. Our prices are not that high, and this first book is actually going to be part of a greater series of 7 volumes that is dedicated to teach leadership. And the Resilient Philosopher are in the works for being 4 books altogether. Now, this book is a deeper depth of my philosophy when it comes to life itself, from leadership to spirituality. It covers pretty much every facet of your life. So it is my baby, and I am kind of hesitant of sharing it with the world because that means it has grown up and left the house. But yet, I must release it, and I'm looking forward to see how well it's received. I also want to thank everyone that has listened to this season. I know it has been a bumpy road. We don't have the funding for a fancy podcast, but what we do out of love. We do out of authenticity, and we do it because it is time for everyone to learn the difference between sensationalism, where people hype things up, to the reality of life, like we do, speaking from the truth, speaking from love to one another. So yes, thank you to every listener, to every person that has downloaded a episode. And moving forward, to anyone who makes a comment on the podcast or goes to our website, visionleon.com, we will be releasing the day after the episode a article with the references and everything used for the podcast. And if you leave your comments in there, we will do a shout out during the show, the following show, answering any questions or thanking you for your comments on the episode and the previous episode. So yes, with all this, I say stay resilient. See you on May 20th. And just know we are all the resilient philosopher, and we need to show up for ourselves every single day.